Nigel field cuts through my neighborhood.
There we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you all. I hope that you guys can hear me. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me? You should be able to. What's a pop-up show? It's an extra bonus show. We have a special guest with us tonight. Karen has come. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a show. And I just like found all kinds of fun videos for us to look at and stuff. And so that's what we're gonna do. So welcome, Karen. I'm so glad you could join me.
For having me back. And I have to say, it was kind of the best, sort of the best and worst invite ever, because usually I would have, tried to look, I don't know, presentable or something, but just want to tell everybody. So you messaged me like not even an hour ago and you were like, what are you doing tonight? And I wrote you back and I said, I'm battling a headache while watching the Red Sox lose. And you were like, want to come react to TikTok videos? Yes.
I'm like, I feel like this is like, I feel like what happens with the show is even when I schedule guests, it's just like, hey, do you want to come over and hang out for a bit? Like, it's kind of like what it is. Like if we were like hanging out, like, and I was like, oh my God, I found all these crazy.
So much, so I was like, yes. So a little mascara and here we go. Okay, I'm in. I'm ready.
Oh my gosh. I have to pull up the email. Hopefully I can get the email over here. Steve is not here. So hopefully I can get the email up and going. I think I can. Let me see. Oh, I think it's here. Yes, it's here. It worked. Yay. All right. I don't even remember what this first video is. So, welcome everybody. We're going to do some fun things tonight. I found some funny videos and stuff like that. And so I figured that what we'll do is we'll have some reactions to them. There we go. Okay. So some of it's like, trans stuff and pronoun stuff, and like there's like stuff happening in New York that's going on, and another like, a TikToker, or no, not TikToker. I think it's a social media influencer, so they're probably on all the platforms or whatever. But there's stuff happening in New York City, like it's crazy. But we're gonna start it out with this TikTok person. This one's actually from LGB, which is on Twitter. One of our mutuals, but it's actually a TikTok video. So let me bring this up and we'll start here.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, they got clouds. I don't know about you guys, but I've never had so many conversations around pronouns ever in my life, and we have to remember like what pronouns are. They're secondary. They're how you refer to somebody. They're not like you don't talk about yourself in with a pronoun. I
want to read the comment. I am not familiar with these pronouns. Can you please explain? Okay, so this person's going to explain that.
Yeah, they're going to explain some of these pronouns, which
okay.
I would like to know, where do they even come from? Like, how do you I never knew that this was like I never knew like puberty was optional or that all these pronouns were like optional. Like it just seems like it's a lot of extra stuff and it's a lot to remember. And then if you get them wrong, I mean, we had we played Jeffrey Marsh like an episode or something ago where Jeffrey Marsh is talking about ones that you can't even pronounce. So like,
yes. Oh, I saw that one. Oh, wait. They're called, hold on. If there was a quiz, I want to get a good score. They are called Xeno. They're called Xeno pronouns.
I think that's what these are too. But these ones, I think that
I thought Xeno pronouns were the ones that are unknowable and unsayable.
I don't see. I'm trying to understand all this, and it's. I don't even.
Okay, well, maybe this stunning and brave. They will help us understand.
Yeah, they go by Z. They.
Okay.
I don't. It just doesn't feel proper. It doesn't. All right, I'm gonna mute.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tempest. I'm a member of a DID system, and several people have asked how to use the neopronouns that I use, so here's a quick guide. So I use they, them pronouns, but primarily I use z, them, themself. Now, this is a little bit different from the other z pronoun, which is z, zer, self. So the Z that I use is more related to he, him. I'm agender. I don't really have any kind of gender identity, but I have a masculine body in our world, and I'm more masculine leaning in terms of like self-expression and compliments.
Okay. I'm sorry, but
it's really... I don't know how we're supposed to keep up with this, Karen. I really don't.
First of all, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this because I feel like we can't criticize something that we don't make some kind of good faith effort to understand. Okay, so this person is claiming, first of all, the first thing that was said was a DID system. Does that mean
dissociative identity disorder?
Okay, so I am to believe there is a community living in this human being, like, and they're all different. And so some of them could be trans, some of them could be like whatever the thing, like and they all have different pronouns.
That's got to be confusing for the person themselves.
When did DID become an identity? Like that was, I mean, that's a mental health, like that is something that you are supposed to, if you are actually dealing with that, which is extremely rare. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this person is not dealing with that. You're supposed to seek help and get, like, it's not a vocation. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like all these mental disorders have now just become they're achievements, and it's like, oh, I'm this, okay, I'm done. No, if you have these, you're supposed to
get treatment and help.
And okay, so that was my first thing. The second thing I want to say is it is so fitting that they are surrounded by clouds, because head in the fucking clouds, like this is so, yeah. Well, I think DID is multiple personality disorder, right? Or
as far as I know, that's dissociative identity disorder. So there's a disassociation from their own, like, ID.
So then also when they're talking about them as it relates to the masculine, why aren't you just saying him?
I don't know. I feel like this has become this like really huge, like, I mean, in a way it's a distraction, but in the same way, there are people that that they genuinely feel this way, and it is growing among the younger population.
Do you
It
remember,
really
like,
is.
we were both 90s kids, right? Like 90s kids used to get high. These kids take pronouns as the drug. Do you know what I mean? Like that is their drug, is like the pronouns, the disorders. We would just like get smashed and like get on with our day. Like this, it's like this is actually way more destructive.
Yeah, like we would go and have bonfires out in a field, and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
among the cows, and get drunk and smoke weed. And like these
Yes.
kids are having like major meltdowns and reactions when somebody misgenders them. Like if somebody misgenders, like I've never been misgendered in person, like ever. And then somebody the other day told me, "Oh, well, go bind your boobs and cut your hair short, and then go see." I'm like, I'm still not going to be misgendered. If you took my breasts away, I would not be misgendered. I'm
Right.
still, I'm feminine, and even though I was a tomboy growing up, I still was feminine. Like females are different than males. At this, like,
Yeah. Okay,
it's really.
let's let them continue. I'm curious.
I know. I just. Oh man.
Let's go. Let's
that I like, things like that. And like Cameron and Avery in our system, the not having a gender thing for me specifically is related to the fact that I shapeshifted into a bird. So the other birds also use neopronouns because they don't connect to gender in a human way. Specifically, they don't connect to not having a gender in the same way that a human would connect to not having a gender. So it's not just the fact that we're non-binary, it's the fact that we're not entirely human. So Z, them are gender neutral and singular, and you can use them in a sentence just like you would use he, him, except it's with X's and a Z sound. And that's really it. It doesn't mean anything specific. It's not some complicated usage. It's just an alternative. I do very much prefer Z, them, but they, them is also fine, and I won't be offended if you only use they, them for me. But please do try to use Z, them.
Here's my question. In all seriousness, because
They're a bird?
I was just told they were a bird. So my question then, do they experience like wing dysphoria?
I've heard of someone that had that they said they had wing dysphoria and that they wanted to shake off their wings and like yeah.
Also, how would you ever hang out with that person? Because I guarantee you, it is not possible to hang out with that person for more than 5 minutes and not misgender them. Like, that's not possible. Am I talking to Cameron? Am I talking to Avery? I don't remember their name. Who, like, do you know what I mean? And how do you ever, it's such a deeply antisocial ideology because it's 100% on the self, and it is 100% like it's almost like the self ID is actually not accurate, because if it was just about the self ID and it's like, okay, I think of myself like this, okay, cool, like go ahead. But no, it's actually I need society to ID me the way that I imagine myself to be. So that's the problem. Like the expectation is that that person goes shopping, goes to wherever they go, goes to the mall, go whatever, and is honestly has set themselves up to feel traumatized and hurt if what is coming back at them from society is not reflective of what's in their head. This is a cruelty. I mean, oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's if your whole identity is based upon how others feel about you and others refer to you, then you're always gonna feel disappointed and let down by the world, because you're expecting others to justify who you are and give you that gratification. It's very
Right.
it feels very like narcissistic based, and you know, like I just it, whatever happened to like just being confidently, you know, who you are and having that self-love. Now it's like you are entitled to how you're never going to find that acceptance in the world. There's no one person that's going to find that acceptance.
Like they're going to go out into the world and people are going to say she, because that's reality.
Because we have natural instincts also that go along with she or he pronouns that we've used our entire natural lives, and it's just built within our language.
It's
You know,
not only built within the language, it's built into our instincts, and they're there for a reason as well, right?
Yep.
They're part
But
of
I mean,
what
when I say our language, though, I mean like within the United States, because
Yeah.
not every language even has these. What are you going to do if you ever want to travel outside of like, you know, the West? What are you going to do? Because their languages don't necessarily have all these pronouns.
Thinking about that. I was thinking about that recently. Like, if this thing spreads enough, and we're seeing just how much acceptance and sort of institutional backing this is getting, what happens to all the romance languages? If we're doing, you know, gender neutral language here, and you can't say this and you can't say that, what happens to all these romance languages where everything's fucking gendered in their language? Are you going to dismantle entire cultures and structures of the?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do?
What up? You know what I mean? Because like they're in, yeah, like in linguistics, if you look at it, a lot of the language, it has, you know, feminine, masculine, and it's inanimate objects as well. So how does that work?
I don't know. All right, do we have another one?
We do. We have more. I don't remember what this one is either. Was this one I got from Twitter as well earlier? This was like in the beginning. I was just like, oh yeah, we need to do a show later, and so I started putting some stuff together. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. This is what started this all. This is what made that video, and then this one is what made me go, yeah, we need to do like a stream on this, and just talk about this, because I mean, like, it's not even just to like make fun of people or anything. I don't understand this. I really honestly do not understand it, and but we're somehow supposed to use this, and when we don't have understanding, and then if you say you don't understand it, they're like, you're transphobic, you're a bigot, you're blah 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 blah, and you're like, I literally just don't get what you're even talking about. It's like they're talking a foreign language, like they're coming up with their own like third language, their own new category of genders and the language to go with it. That's why I call it a cult. I really believe it is.
Oh, look at the glasses. Why do they always have, it's either the glasses or the unnatural colored hair, which I'm really sad actually that kind of got ruined, because I used to love doing that, but that's really,
you know what Buck told me? Buck Angel told me it's the uniform.
Yes, that's such a good way of putting it, because I feel like it's always the glasses, the hair, and usually like a septum ring.
I know.
And I know you and I both have our nose pierced, and I'm like, I'm holding out, motherfucker. You're not taking my nose piercing, but like, it's always the same look. And these people think they are the rebellion. They're a counterculture. I'm like, this is the man. Like, that's the problem. All the stuff around queer has become the establishment. So you are going to start to see, I hope, kids rebel, because they always rebel against, you know, parents, teachers, the establishment. Well, now look what you've made the establishment. It's this on the screen.
yeah, being, like I grew up, like, I was born in the 80s, so I grew up in the 80s and then into the 90s mostly. Like that was like my, my solid part of my childhood. And it was fuck the establishment. It
Yes.
was, like we're fucking creating our own fucking rules and we're rebelling against you. And this is where we're at now, where the establishment is like, oh yeah, and then but somehow like I'm wrong for being like, wait a minute, why are we accepting all of this in schools, and why is this okay suddenly? Like it bothers me, and then I get called out by these shit libs that have the uniform,
Right.
and come after me like I'm doing something wrong by being, no, I'm not for the establishment. Like it feels ridiculous.
Okay, I'm curious. Let's listen to this.
So there's a conversation that goes around a lot where people who habitually use gendered honorifics like sir or ma'am ask very kindly what a good gender neutral replacement for that would be. And the most common answer from people like me who don't like gendered words applied to us is learn to drop the honorific, because most of us don't like to be put in that situation in a quick interaction with a stranger. And the asker will protest that they don't feel like they're respecting people without the honorific. Friends, I see you really trying, and I understand that you've been conditioned really hard to use this kind of language. But I have to ask, who is the respect for in this scenario? Because we're telling you, the best way to respect us is to not use an honorific there. Standards of communication change, and if you're committed to really respecting people, you might want to reconsider the script in your head. So there's a conversation.
Okay. So a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, and I don't mean this to sound cruel, but it is an observation that I've noticed a theme in all of these kind of videos, because we see them every day, right, on Twitter and stuff. There seems to be like either a very deliberate intent, like I don't know, it's like they're trying to make themselves look off-putting or less attractive or even like less hygienic. Like there just seems like there's not like
I think it's just their mental health that is showing. I think their mental health is physically showing with some of the people.
Yeah. And it's very sad. Like I mean that really it is sad. And then the other thing in terms of like you were just talking about the narcissism, because listen to what she said. It's like, I need society to change X thing for me, for this tiny microscopic group of people. All of society now must change how we communicate, how we've always communicated. There is not one shred of assimilation or wanting to assimilate that's happening on their end to be like, how do I walk the world in peace while getting respect and giving respect, and you know what I mean? That doesn't exist.
There also is a very like there's a very definitive argument among this cult, this establishment of the pronouns and everything else. Some of them are telling you not to use them at all. Others are telling you what they prefer. Others are telling you that they're silent ones that they can't pronounce and that you can't use them. So like it's really confusing. I don't understand where anybody is supposed to know what the fuck to do, and you're gonna get it wrong no matter what. Whoever it is, you're gonna get it wrong. And that's just it. You're wrong. You need to be put in your place, and I'm going to correct you, or I'm going to have a complete meltdown. And that's what's happening. And it feels like what the hell are we supposed to do here? And it makes you just go, okay, I'm just not going to interact with these kind of people. I mean, like, who wants to interact with these kind of people? They're kind of putting up a wall around themselves to not have friends and not have people want to talk to them, because oh my gosh, if you get it wrong, then you're the worst person ever, and you're called all the names.
You're being set up to fail. is what
Yeah.
it is. You would
Society, they're setting
that's the
society up to fail. And they want to have everybody cater to them personally. Like each individual person like in society, it's so much individualism, as we're using normal he and she pronouns. It's very collectivism, right? It's very collective. It's very easy to do. It makes it. I mean, we never had this issue. Did you ever have an issue like with that? There might have been a person every once in a while that you were like unsure of, maybe if you should have referred to them as a he or a she. And that was as simple as it got. And now there's over 100 of them.
I mean, I just always think about like being in high school in the 90s and all of the gender bending that went on, and never once was, someone like, oh, actually, but I think, I want to be referred to as what it was just, no, you were a guy that came to school today in a dress because you fucking felt like it. I don't know. And there was no conversation. We actually were so much more accepting, and so like your sexuality was the least interesting thing about you. Your skin color was the least interesting or relevant thing about you. And now we've taken all of that, and it's like, those are now the metrics by which we will judge virtue, sin, who's allowed to speak, who's not allowed to speak, who needs to check their privilege, who's oppressed. Like, it's completely off the rails, and so it's just the narcissism. Wow, that is crazy. So no honorifics for that person. No thank you, sir, or
Ma'am, or not
Okay.
even a they them, like nothing.
Not
How are
even
you supposed to?
that.
It's like they want you walking on eggshells, and like it's like everything is a badge of honor. You know what I mean? Like I deal with things myself. Like I have ADHD and depression, and deal with anxiety, and I have a service animal and all this stuff. But that's not like I don't come on here and go, "Hi everyone, I'm lucky. I'm ADHD and I'm blah 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 and blah blah blah, and I have a service." You know what I mean? Like that's just not my person. That's not who I am. Those are things that I deal with as a person, but they aren't my identity. But we have people that honestly, that this is
Okay, let's read
whatever they're
them.
dealing with is their identity.
Hi there, I'm Cody. Pronouns I don't know how to even say those.
Oh, they'll say them. They'll say them.
Or
Hang on.
or really any neo pronouns that aren't z, her, his. Okay, yeah, just play it. I'm so confused.
I'm Cody. Pronouns em, ers, or zem, zers, or really any neo-pronouns that aren't z, her, hers. I am a white transmasculine femme non-binary, temporarily mostly able-bodied, neurodivergent, obsessive-compulsive, chronically ill, culturally Jewish, Unitarian Universalist, non-monogamous, demi-low romantic, gray demi-bisexual, survivor of acute and complex trauma, millennial, and cat parent in mental health recovery.
Yeah, survivor of complex trauma was the only relevant, like that set, that's all you need. That makes everything else in there. Until she
Hello, I am also a survivor of very complex trauma. I don't think that this is the way to deal with it.
No, this is not dealing with it. But until she got to that, I thought this was parody. I really did, because I was like, there's just no way. This has got to be like a satirical kind of thing.
If you dive into TikTok and dive into TikTok looking for transgender or pronouns, it's full of this. I mean, there is a lot of stuff on there, and I'm just like, I'm really trying to understand it. I really don't.
Like, I don't understand. Like,
I don't get it.
Where are the parents I would say where are the friends, but it sounds like it's whole friend groups that are doing this and enforcing this and cheering this. Aziz, again, how would you even hang out with this person?
I don't know. I mean, like that's a whole lot. That's a whole mouthful. I don't even know how they remember all of those things. Like, you know, like
and what else is like all this person did was like list these identitarian characteristics or disorders, but I know nothing about this person. Like, do you have any interests? Do you have any hobbies? Do you
they're
do
a
you have
cat.
opinions on anything?
They have a cat.
They have a cat. The
No,
cat.
so they said they're trans masculine.
That's not a thing, by the way. And I know that Buck has said that too. That is not a thing.
Temporarily mostly able-bodied. So like you don't have a disability. Okay. Neurodivergent.
That could mean dyslexic, which I am. I mean,
yep, me too. Obsessive compulsive. Okay. Which chronically ill, culturally Jewish, Unitarian Universalist. So you'd like to go to the UU church. Non-monogamous. What?
Demi-low romantic. So
What is that?
It's a sometimes. So demi-romantic is somewhat romantic, right? So demi-low romantic would mean some.
Is this like their dating profile? Like, is this what they're doing?
Is this Tinder? I don't know. And also, like, I like that. I'm sorry. I know they say non-monogamous. Oh wait, what is a gray demi-bisexual?
Is that like an alien, like the grays? I don't know. I honestly I don't know what these things are.
And what is a demisexual is I think it's just like supposed to be a cool way of saying you have a low sex drive. I think. Yeah, these are the new goths. That it is. It's just actually like way lamer though. Like remember when we went from
goth? Confusing goth. Okay, this is like I got goth kids. You know, I had friends that were goth kids. This is confusing. There wasn't like you didn't have like a whole like list of filters of things that people don't even understand what you're talking about.
Remember when we went from goth to emo and we were like, oh god, these emo kids are so fucking whiny and lame. Like it's just such a poor imitation of goth. This now we have the yes, they left out part-time lesbian. That's true. They left out. Or I think
they're not special.
Like me. Say part-time non-man.
That's probably what they would have to say.
I don't. But all of these things, just again, it's just a psych eval. It's just these things don't exist. Like they're not based in any kind of material reality or cultural reality or societal reality. They're just it's these words, and I don't know who keeps inventing them. That would be a really good
I want to know where this is all coming from
to go on.
Oh, Steve, I think this one is the one that I clipped just for you.
Oh,
Wiggles, why? Because I want your reaction to this.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, hang on.
This is already, I wish I had alcohol because, oh my God, this is cruel to do sober.
there's quite some things like that I came across, and like I'm not normally like on TikTok, so I guess it's just like me browsing through to find.
Yes,
some
I've
stuff.
never gone on TikTok. I only see this stuff when people post it on Twitter, or if I watch like a YouTube reaction, like, oh, let's react to TikToks. I do not have TikTok, and I will not. I no.
Okay, so they say a cool thing about
Oh.
being trans is that you can sing duets by yourself.
Oh, okay.
You ready, Steve? Can you see it? Okay. Oh, I think I have it muted. Yes. Here we go.
There's something sweet and almost kind, but he was mean and he was coarse and unrefined, and now he's dear and so unsure. I wonder why I didn't see it there before. She glanced this way, I thought I saw, and when we touched she didn't shudder at my paw. No, it can't be, I'll just ignore, but then she's never looked at me that way before. New and a bit alarming, who'd have ever thought that this could be true, that he's no Prince Charming, but there's something in him that I simply didn't see. Well, who'd have thought? Well, who'd have known? And who'd have guessed they'd come together on their own? We'll wait and see. A few days more, there may be something there that wasn't there before. Perhaps there's something there that wasn't there before. There may be something there that wasn't there before.
So, how about
I thought it was pretty cool that they could do that with their voice. I thought it was
and so here's what I want to say, like, how about this one who clearly has the most, I think, life potential of anyone that we've looked at so far? How about you drop all this bullshit, go take some music lessons and have a life and like cultivate something? How about that? Because clearly you've got something. Go drop this bullshit and go actually study something.
I think it would be amazing to see what they could
Yes.
do because they have that
Yes.
range. What do you think,
Yeah.
Steve? I thought like this would be a good one for Steve to react to.
Sure. I think a little bit of,
Which one of these is yours?
wood shedding. The first one.
No.
Do you see it now?
No.
I'll tap on it.
Now I see it.
Okay.
That wasn't. It was third one. So what were you saying?
First of all, I was saying that you could be schizophrenic and have the same kind of duet. But sure, people should explore their abilities and their talents. And I think that person has some talent. At least they understand the dynamics between high parts and low parts and stuff. So that's good. I don't know. I don't know what to think. There's too many fucking weird things going on in these videos.
I don't know if your mic is on.
Well, that's fine. You can put it.
I'm a little confused why they're connecting being trans, supposedly trans, with being able to accompany yourself in a duet, because it's like they're implying, right, like what Steve said, that like trans means like you're two people, when like no, you're the idea is that you're transitioning from one sex, one gender, whatever you want to say it.
It's presenting as the opposite sex so that you can walk easier in the world, and you're more, it helps with your gender dysphoria. That is what transsexuals do, but transgender is a completely different thing, and that's what I'm trying to understand here.
Different animal.
And I'm trying to like make sure that that's really clear, that there is a difference between transsexual people who are like Buck Angel, and Blair White is another one. I had Charlotte on the other day. Charlotte's a transsexual. I have other ones, other transsexuals that are going to come on the show and that I'm friends with. And there's a big difference, because most likely you would not be able to pick out a transsexual person.
Right.
Because their whole goal is to blend, to walk the world as the opposite sex of what they were born, because it helps with their own personal gender, just like their body dysmorphia, their gender dysphoria, their sex dysphoria.
Transsexuals depend on a gender binary. If you destroy the gender binary, that is actually extremely anti-trans, because they are looking to transition and blend and be in society and not be disruptive. See, I think what's happened is, obviously we see that whole movement about the LGB and the TQ divorce. And I think if you look at that whole acronym, right, like you have LGB, which even unto themselves don't necessarily always like have the same interests, but surely like the majority of the time, I would say they work together beautifully.
Yes, Grey Walker. Yes.
Those are sexualities. LGB is a sexuality.
Yep.
The T is a mental health condition that is caused by gender dysphoria. That's the T. The problem is the Q is a radical political identity that has given itself permission to speak for the entire LGBT. That to me is what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember I remember in the 90s, the late 90s, and it all kind of like came out, like where the T was added on. It became more, more prominent that we were not just LGB, we were LGB with the T, and the T stood for transsexual. And then that was to just say, it was because there was a lot of people that are transsexual that are also part of the LGB, right? So it was just like, you also are a small group of people and you need the help and support. And so we're going to lend you our help and support and our advocacy. But then they started tacking on all these other things, and it's political what they've tacked on, because there's LGB people from every background, politically. It's not, we're not, it's a very like loose terminology.
And the problem is like the Q, which has become very loud. The Q rejects all classical categorization and norms. Well, that is going to be completely antithetical to LGB and classical transsexuals. These things don't go together at all. They're actually completely at odds.
Yeah, it is. It is really at odds. Okay, so being like, when like lesbians are women who are, emotionally and sexually attracted to other women. And like they're trying to change the term to being non-men loving non-men, and it's like, no, that is like, no, we're not we're not a subcategory of something, or an exclusion. That's just too broad. It's too wide and too open. And they're like, oh well, you can be a non-binary and a lesbian. No, because non-binary means that you do not believe in the binary. I've always been gender non-conforming. I grew up as a tomboy. And like, so it doesn't make any sense that we need to have these other categories and other, and then exclude people if they don't agree with all these additional categories of people.
Which is kind of
It's ridiculous.
ironic, since they love, like, since like inclusion is their favorite word. You know what I mean? But like,
It's very exclusive, though. It's not inclusive.
Oh yeah. And I would say too that like some things are not intended to be inclusive, and that's okay. Like,
yeah,
inclusive is not automatically good. It's a thing, and it's a good thing when it is appropriate. It is a very damaging thing when it is not appropriate.
Yeah. It's where, and then there's a lot of force and a lot of, there's these other things that are happening. So this next clip that I have ready for TikTok is, okay, so to give a little bit of, background as to what happened on my Twitter recently, I put up an image of it was obviously a male that was dressed up in a dress and that had heels on Twitter, and they had posted an image. I believe it was from a Reddit forum, but they're like, should I tell him, like, when they're going on a date, whether or not that they're trans? And it kind of like went a little bit crazy. Like, it was just like comment after comment after comment, like it blew up. And I think it's dangerous to do this. I think it's dangerous. I don't think that it's safe to, and that you should be hiding your identity. Not that you have to tell everyone at the grocery store who you are and what you're, what you're doing and who you like to have in your bedroom. Like, that's not appropriate either. But there needs to be a level of disclosure that happens, especially when it's a romantic thing. So that's where we're at right now. I think that people are going to be putting themselves at risk, because there are people who do not like trans people at all, whether it's transsexuals or transgenders. There are people that are hateful. I'm not one of those people. I know I get labeled as that, but I'm not like against people, adults doing what adults do. Like, do you, but don't hurt anybody else in the process of it. But I think this is going to be harmful. If this becomes trending, then this is going to become harmful. So it says, going on a date, should I tell him I'm trans before or after?
Why is that even a question?
There's something just like kind of
you need to disclose. You need to disclose
there's
things.
something fundamentally broken in the psyche of someone who even ponders this question. I mean, again, a lot of these people have such an obsession with consent, even to a very sort of just overkill. Like, consent is very important, but I mean, it becomes such a staple. But then when you get something like this, suddenly consent goes out the window for the other person. Like, of course you need to tell them. Of course you do. And the thing is, if you don't know this person. Like you were saying, you have no idea how they're going to
You're putting yourself at risk.
Now, there is never, if this person, God forbid, suffered some violence because the person they didn't tell freaked out, that is totally not okay. But at the same time, I would not walk into a lion's den covered in meat and then be like, oh my God, I got attacked by the lion. What, you know what I mean? Like you've got to take some responsibility for just making yourself safe and the situation safe. Why would you not tell the person? What is the justification for not doing that?
I don't know. I think that then if somebody doesn't disclose it and then something violent happens and they're gonna yell, look, people hate trans people.
Right.
But no, you're really like, I don't think it's okay to react in violence to people, but I don't think it's okay to pretend that we don't need to have full disclosure if you are romantically meeting up with somebody like that. You don't know how people are going to react.
It's
And
also just such a
it's a manipulative thing, you know.
Why would you do that to someone?
You're lying to them. Are you really basing something on a lie? Like that's not healthy. That's not a healthy way to start anything. I don't know why somebody
And
would put
it just sets up the whole thing. So like let's say they go on like a couple of dates and they're getting along and this trans woman thinks like, oh, this is great, and then tells them and they say, no, that's not going to work for me. I'm so sorry. That's just not, I can't go there. You're lovely, but I can't go there. That guy is going to get labeled as a transphobe. That's totally unfair.
Yeah, it's not fair to anybody in this situation. I mean, you're setting yourself up for a major rejection, but maybe they'll accept you and love you who you are. And that would be the best outcome. Like to know that, you know, oh, I'm not going to have to like suddenly have some like big talk with somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And I think Graywalker has a good point. Some people will love to cross other people's boundaries. Almost maybe it's a thrill. Maybe it's, you know, they get some weird pleasure out of it. Maybe it's from, you know, I don't know, but it just seems like playing with fire. That seems like playing with fire behavior.
Oh yeah.
What did people on your Twitter say about it?
About the other person, they were like, oh, it's obvious that's a man. Like they were just like flat out like, no, that's a man, that's a bloke. You know, that was that was a reply a lot. You know, I don't think it's fair to do that to somebody. I really don't. I
don't think, I mean, yeah, some people don't pass well. I don't think I would automatically, like, I knew it going in, but I don't know if I would have known otherwise.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing, is that there are people that pass. You know, there's people that really will pass and that will do a really great job. And you know, but that doesn't mean that gives you permission to, I'm putting the Rumble link in the YouTube chat just so you guys know, in case you guys want it. That doesn't give us permission to then, you know, violate somebody else. Like that, you know, I mean, that's not, that shouldn't be the case.
Do we have more videos?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Takes a second for them to pull up. Oh, wait, this is the same one. I don't want that one. Oh, and then there are real people that have real raw reactions to that rejection. And you know, and it's hard. It's really hard to have people not accept you. So like you get both ends of it. You get certain people that are trying to push it, and then you get people that are doing the absolute opposite and that are just trying to be who they are. And it's just, this whole thing is, it could be, it's like a minefield. It feels like. So this next person is a younger person that is dealing with their mother not wanting to use their name and their pronouns. And I can't imagine as a parent going through this.
This is a little story time. I'm a trans man, and my mom is transphobic. And I tried telling her that I'm gonna live as myself. I came out when I was 12. I'm 16 now. It's been 4 years of being trans, and she still never called me my name, never accepted me, never, talks to me like I'm my name and who I am. So I tried telling her how I never felt accepted by her, and she always said that she always accepts me, and she always loved me as me, even though she never did. And then she said, okay, you can be who you are, but I'm not going to let my 7-year-old son get exposed to gender ideology, which is the most insane sentence I've ever heard in my life. Because gender ideology to her is just me being myself, and me being Augustus, and me being he, him pronouns and things. And we had a whole argument over that, and I told her I'm going to be myself no matter what, and I'm going to tell him no matter what, even if she doesn't like it, I'm going to do it. And it ended by me getting in another car in a random parking lot and walking away, and her following me in the fucking car and screaming at me. And then apparently she tells me I made it all about her. Like, fucking yeah, you're the only person who doesn't accept me in my life. Yeah, this is the trans experience. This is what we have to deal with. This is who we are, and we can't change it, and I don't understand why people are so fucking just blatantly obviously rude and blatantly obviously destroying us. Thanks for listening if you did. This is a little story time.
Do you see what we're doing to kids? Like what this entire thing is doing to kids. I have no idea, obviously, if this poor kid is really trans or there's something else going on, or we have no idea. But just like, I mean, the level of disdain he has for his mom, the complete lack of compassion for what she might be going through with all of this. Obviously, it sounds like maybe they need some family therapy. That would be good. And
but instead it's full display on TikTok of what is happening. Like, my family is broken and I'm feeling upset by it, and it's like TikTok has become therapy.
That's the therapist, because think about it like this. So he's doing, he's crying, he's very distraught, but he had to set up the camera, get the angle. Do you know what I mean? There's something, when you look at all of these videos, all of the meltdown videos, you gotta realize, like, this, you're looking at this, these are staged to some degree. They have to be, because someone else, you're setting up the camera, you're crying in a certain way, like it's so performative. I'm not saying that the emotions aren't real, but the display of the emotion is quite theatrical and polished in a sense.
I think it's the thing of the Springer show, the Maury Povich show, that here, look how dysfunctional everything is right here, glaring circus thing, but it's self-produced, individual, and specific to each person's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not just like a made-for-TV thing. It is a made-for-TV thing. It's that same thing as
we've evolved.
as Maury and Jerry
Jerry
Springer.
Springer.
It's that same exact thing. It's just the nth degree now. It's just brought into this new realm where you produce. Everybody's their own producer now. You don't need a TV studio. You
Yeah,
just need a fucking camera and a phone.
It's like everybody's their own reality show, and so it's just. I mean, you think about it. This kid is so distraught, and he thinks, okay, let me get the camera and record a TikTok video.
I know. I've never been distraught and been like, oh my gosh, let me record. Like, I cover stuff on this show and I'm upset about it, like trying not to cry on camera. But these people purposely set up to cry on camera.
But I think the other thing is, like, to me, one thing that this suggests is that we have so gotten away from community and from family and from just real life relationships that, like, for this kid, this might feel like, oh, I am running to a friend, I am running to community. TikTok is that, or Tumblr, or whatever your thing is, where you can put up this video and then they're going to wait for the clicks, they're going to wait for the likes, they're going to wait for the comments. And it's like, that's what we've devolved into. It's so virtual. It's
and also it doesn't matter if they get positive or negative feedback from their video, because there'll be people in there that will defend what their opinion is, and then there'll be people on the other side that will say, oh well, I'm going to show support to the mom, and like it, but this person will have somebody reply to them, and then they can make another video on and react to the reply, and it's a continuous cycle of self-producing content. Like Steve was saying, it's self-production, self-ID,
self-promotion, self-affirmation, all of it.
Yeah,
like
it's all very narcissistic, it feels like.
It is. And like I said, clearly this kid is distraught. I think that
I hope they get some help. I hope that they get the help that they need.
That we are not getting an accurate picture of what is going on at all. But I'm left to wonder, I'm like, was he ever given a mental health screening? But then I think too, like, even if he had, they could have just led him down this path that he's on, because there's so much ideological capture in the therapeutic realm that is just disgusting, that they could easily say, oh yeah, you're feeling like this because you're trans, and oh, your parents don't accept you, and you know what I mean? And
then if they get somebody like Jeffrey Marsh, who's like, please kids, if you want to go no contact with your family, and a child is distraught like this, and he's like, yeah, just join my Patreon where you can talk to me directly, and like, if you want to go no contact with your family, do you see the manipulation that can happen here? These kids are being put in danger.
Oh, they are, because have you noticed, like, the way that the narrative is shifted, where, like, parents are now like enemy number one? I mean, we always as kids were like, oh, like, parents just don't understand, or like whatever, but this is literally like a top-down effort of parents are enemy number one. And they've also now, I feel like this
and the state has your back now.
The state has your back.
The state has your back, but your parents are enemy number one, where it used to be that, like, it was like we were against the government and the parents were just annoying. Now it's like, oh no, now the government might be annoying, but they have your back, and your parents flipped itself.
Exactly. And this term that I know we never had when we were growing up is like the trusted adult. Find a trusted adult. It's just like, what is a trusted? Is that Jeffrey Marsh? Who is that? What's a trusted adult? And a trusted adult now is an adult that will affirm the kid. That's a trusted adult.
Yeah, if you live in California and you don't affirm your kid, they can take your child away. So depending on where this child lives, if this child lives in a state where where they can take you away and medically transition you without your parents' consent. Like, that is happening.
Not to mention, California is also a sanctuary state for that, which
Yep.
means that kids from other states who run away to California does not have to tell those parents where their kid is.
Yeah, for like days at a time. They don't even have like a time frame. They're not like, yeah, it's, you know. All right, so here is a really crazy story that I saw earlier on Twitter, and then I have an update to that story, and you'll know which one I'm talking about.
Okay.
This is just, you know, beyond me. Let me pull that up. So this is making the rounds, and this is from a few years ago. Let me see. Okay, give me the controls here. There we go. Oh, whoops. Not one yet. Oops, no. I clicked the wrong thing. Let me do this. There's like so many steps to like get something to actually come up on the screen. So this is about a son and a mother who both transitioned.
Never seen a family like this.
We went from mother
And son
to father.
and daughter.
That's right. This father and daughter used to be mother and son. 15-year-old Corey Mason, who loves mascara and lip gloss, was actually born a boy.
I always wanted to be a girl. I would always, go like this, like this. I was always girly.
And this is the woman who gave birth to Corey and 4 other kids. She never felt comfortable in her female body.
I definitely felt like a boy. I definitely felt like I identified with boys, but I didn't realize it was possible that I could actually be one.
It wasn't until 4 years ago when the two watched a TV special on transgender teen activist Jazz Jennings that everything became clear.
I said, wow, I'm just like her. I'm a girl trapped in a boy's body.
Corey started taking puberty blockers at age 11 to stop facial hair growth and deepening of the voice.
You know what that is?
This is the moment Corey received her first dose of female hormones. She's overcome with emotion.
Just seeing her courage and her bravery in the face of so much adversity, I think that's ultimately what gave me the courage to come out myself.
For Mom, the transition began with a short haircut.
Oh my God.
The 39-year-old then started injecting testosterone.
My voice has gotten deeper. I've grown facial hair, even though I shave it now.
Earlier this year came the double mastectomy.
Excited? Happy?
I felt like I was trapped in a woman's body, and just that mastectomy made me feel free.
The transition has proved difficult for Les Mason, who married Erica 10 years ago.
It's challenging because I married this beautiful woman, but I'm getting to the opportunity to see someone become who they truly are.
It's prom season across the country, and Corey won't be left out. The entire family helped pick out a dress.
You want it like big and poofy?
Ooh, yes, very. What you think?
Definitely.
Her little sister Ellen has a prediction.
She's gonna be a prom queen. I know it.
This is who she was meant to be. Definitely. No question about it.
And though Corey's mother is now a man, he'll never stop being Mom.
I love you, Mom.
I love you too.
Oh my God. So, there's a lot to say there. First of all, okay, so
Family like this.
you trans your gay son. That's one. You trans your gay son, because that little kid, from what it looks like, was just probably going to grow up and be a gay. He's like, oh, I go like this, I go like that. I mean, maybe would have grown up and been a lovely gay man. What the hell is wrong with that? Nothing. So, and I'm troubled by the connection to watching I Am Jazz. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like, oh, we watched that and then we realized, oh, that's us or that's me. No.
And just a little background, I Am Jazz is a television show where a little boy was transitioned into a girl and had bottom surgery, meaning they inverted the penis into a vagina when Jazz was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that happened on national television. People saying that it's not happening to kids or that kids aren't having these surgeries are lying, or they are just not paying attention.
Yeah.
One of the two, because it happened on national television. I Am Jazz. You can look up the series.
That poor kid can never be sexually functional.
Yeah, I mean, and people are like, oh, well, why do you care about kids' sexuality or whether they're, they can function? Well, the thing is that I care about people as adults being able to have sexual function.
Yeah. And you know what? You want to talk about like a fucking human right? An orgasm.
This is them now.
An orgasm is a human right.
Yep. And this is them now.
Oh,
This is the I guess do they go by Corey? They do pornography now. The
kid.
The one that was the one that was a kid that I think they're in their 20s. And that's a worrying trend that I've seen, is that a lot of times what is happening is that they are going into porn. And I'm like, what's going on here? That all these kids go in that direction.
Well,
not everyone, but some of them do.
I think, and I could be wrong on this, so I don't, I think though, to the best of my knowledge, there always have been like a disproportionate amount of trans people who have wound up doing sex work. I believe. If I am wrong, please tell me I'm wrong. That's totally cool. But I think that's the case. And then I guess you can get into, why would that be? I'm sure there's a plethora of reasons for why that would be. But like, if that is in fact the case, then this is just more of that. But this child is so young, and it just seems then was like set on that path so disturbingly early. Never explored, like, you look at that story, the video, it doesn't sound like there was even any pushback. It was celebratory. It was like, oh, mommy, that's me. I'm just like Jazz. And then the mother's like,
It's completely romanticized, as if this is a normal. As you know what, I'm sorry, but anybody who's a trans person doesn't want more people to be trans. Like, transsexuals aren't like, oh yeah, let me get more transsexuals to exist, because they know how hard it is of a world to live in a world where you don't, you aren't who you want to be. You aren't who you feel you are, because you have a mental health disorder called gender dysmorphia or body dysmorphia.
One thing I notice that I see on Twitter, either when other people make the point, or if I'm trying to have some kind of debate with someone and I make the point, that the overwhelming number of children who do experience gender dysphoria will have that dysphoria resolved by going through natal puberty. That is
the percentage is really high.
That is the cure. That is the cure. And what I will see is that upsets these trans activists, many of whom are not even trans, to an incredible degree, because I think what the part they are unwilling to say and I would honestly respect them at least a little bit more if they had the balls to say it, is that they don't want them to grow out of it.
No, they don't. They don't want them to grow out of it. And it's weird. Who wants to have prepubescent children? Who wants kids to not develop? You know what I mean? Like instead of somebody becoming an actual adult and having like adult features, these puberty blockers stunt their brains. I mean, there's differences between males and females, and there's this really cool video I saw earlier called The Chair Experiment. And we're going to play that because I think it's really interesting. Oops, I have to add it first and then make it big. I think it's really interesting. And, maybe this is what we need to do is have chairs outside of the bathroom. And this can solve our bathroom debate as to who goes in what bathroom. It's silly, but it's a real thing. All right. Let me pull this up.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of this before, but there's this experiment. And what the experiment consists of is you have to have your body up against the wall in a certain way, and then there's a chair underneath you, and you have to try and lift up the chair. Well, supposedly, women are able to do this, but men aren't able to do this. So naturally, most of us guys were incredibly skeptical, and we were like, no, of course we can pick up the chair. And all the women that we were hanging out with were like, no, it's true. Men can't pick up the chair, but women are able to. So we attempted this experiment, and this is what happened.
A million things could possibly break.
Here we go.
You look like a weird bird. Oh my god, let's see you do it again. Watch, now I won't be able to get. And down. And.
No. All right.
I'm gonna try.
No, I'm doing this.
I'm gonna try. Yeah, do it. You just let me try. Now it's just your wider stance.
Here we go. Okay. All right. No.
Woo! Seems simple enough, right? Mason, come do this.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Oh, now I'm screwed. Okay, there you go.
Here's a girl.
I think that's my blood. All right.
Wait, oh my gosh! Here, no.
I don't know.
Ah! Who bled on the
I
wall?
think it was me somewhere.
Feet together.
Feet together. Back straight.
Back
Head on
straight.
wall.
Like,
I don't know where I'm bleeding.
see, it's arched weird.
I don't know. Oh my
Now
God.
stand up.
Your heels are up. You can't run your face up the wall. No, you didn't. Are you gonna try again?
No, that hurt my face.
I don't know. Pick up chair.
How is that?
Maybe the chair wasn't against the wall.
I just don't understand how there's no struggle for you guys.
Yeah, stand back a little so you can make your back.
Does it explain it online? No.
Is it? Am I straight?
No, you're good. I said the button, but let me
My heels came up. This?
Maybe down a little bit. You're good. You're probably good.
The males fall every time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no!
You can tell by all the pictures.
No.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of this before, but there's this.
Have you and Steve tested this?
I did, yeah. Okay, so it's our center of gravity that's different
Mm-hmm.
with males and females. So
Yeah.
everybody should try this. You have to look up the chair experiment to know exactly, like, you know what I mean, to make sure that you're doing it the right way. But yeah, males and females have a different center of gravity. The way that we're built.
Here's the thing, though, and this is ultimately what is so maddening about gender ideology and the very devout proponents of it, because if any of the women in that video had said, like, oh, I'm trans, I'm a guy, or whatever, the activist would then say, no, see, there are some men who can lift up the chair because they're a guy. And it's like, well, no, no, because trans men are men. And this brings me to the realization, right, that this ideology is solely dependent on linguistics. It is a deeply, deeply linguistic ideology, which is why they are so adamant about the language. It's why they are so like trans women are women, trans men are men, because they understand, I think, on some level, right, that science is not on their side, objective reality is on their side. They understand somewhere deep within that the only actual way one can change their sex is in the language. And that's why they want the language. That's why they want it legislated. That's why they say no debate. That's why it's just this moral imperative that's given, because that's the only way it can actually be, is to say it, write it, legislate it, because the reality is never going to be on their side, right? So to me, that's the conclusion I've come to. It is a completely linguistic ideology, which I think is why then you can't give them an inch on the language.
Yeah. And I have a really hard time with that because I try to respect everybody's, like, you know, how they identify. But I understand why there are women that are like, no, I'm sorry. I can't do it. And they can't. Or there's religion, like there's, you know, like in the Muslim faith, like they cannot, they can't do it.
No.
And it's not because they're trying to be disrespectful. It's not a matter of trying to be disrespectful. It's a matter of being truthful.
And there was a point where there was like this fundamental shift where we used to understand transsexualism as like, no, of course you can't change your sex, but what you are after is to embody the opposite sex as close in physicality as much as possible, and you want to embody the social role as closely as possible. But there was no denial of biology. There was no sex as a spectrum. There was no, you know, gender is just this construct, and really reality itself is a construct, and our words are what dictate the reality. We didn't have any of that. That's new, and that's the part that's overtaking. And as you know, that is completely, those people, those activists, they're completely hostile to classical transsexuals. There's a couple of very conflicting agendas going on that I think a lot of people, it's very easy not to be aware of it unless you are like you and I, people like mad people like us who have just done such a deep dive into the rabbit hole of this whole entire thing.
Yeah, if you look at it just on a surface level, it's really easy to miss the things and to go around and call people who are speaking about the truth and call them transphobic, because it can sound that way. It can really easily be like manipulated into sounding like it's they're being hateful, they're being transphobic, but actually no, we're just on the side of truth, and that's where we are. And why do I need why, you know what I mean? I can acknowledge the truth and still be, you know, and be kind to people. But when people are purposefully going at others in a way that sometimes they do, I lose that polite, you know what I mean? Like calling somebody by the preferred pronouns is polite, but it's not necessarily truthful.
No.
And I live in a world where I like to keep truth, but sometimes I will try to, you know, like let the kindness, you know, prevail over the truth. But it's a really hard balance for me. And I do it selectively because I care about the truth, and I don't like feeling like I'm gaslit or I'm having to do something on purpose. Like I don't like the force of it.
Yeah, and I think that there's like, you know, on some level, people always have given themselves some type of delusion, right? Like whether it's, I mean, you can look at religion, right, and be like, okay, we're actually going to say like, no, I really believe that, like, you know, Jesus walked on water. That probably is a delusion, but if you are a true believer, like, no, you believe that, you are committed to that, like you honestly think that, okay, cool. I would argue actually that's probably a much lighter delusion than some of the shit we're seeing now, because this affects all aspects of society. It's like bleeding in. Delusion itself is not new, but I think the type of delusion, how disruptive that delusion is, how imposing that delusion is, that's where we get into trouble. And if it purely was just something like self ID, okay, but it's not. That's kind of not an accurate way to describe what it is, because when you say like, okay, some guy in a who has a beard and is in a dress, and it's like, I want to be treated like a woman, I am a woman. Well, what does that mean to treat you like a woman? What that's going to mean is that you want access to
women's
female-only spaces free of scrutiny. That's what you actually want, right? With no effort to even try to assimilate or show respect for women or have an extra layer of maybe modesty or whatever, because we have put the self ID, the self declaration, what is happening in the mind, above sex, above biology, above material reality. And it's really an interesting thing too, because it's not as though we have this slew of new science where it's like, oh my god, look at all these new discoveries, whoa. No, all they're doing is reframing science. So you can look at something like intersex, which God knows they love to use, right? That's like one of their favorite things.
They love pulling out the intersex people. Like whenever they decide that, you know, like it's I can use them as a buffer in this case, and then I say, well, I'm friends with two intersex people, so please inform me on this. And then please let's have a conversation, because I'm actually friends with people that were born, and it's a medical condition that they're born with. Please do not use them for your own gratification.
That's my point. So what we used to say was, intersex people, of course, exist. They've always existed. No one has ever denied that. They exist, and they have a chromosomal abnormality that exists within the gender binary. That is what they have. So we've taken that, okay, intersex people exist, but instead of saying what I just said, now they say, well, intersex is a third gender. You didn't change the science, you just changed what you're calling it to advance an ideology.
They changed the description, the descriptor of how they classify that person now. And they didn't actually change anything. They just are like, no, we're changing the description to fit the narrative. And that's all they're doing when they
That's
say
all
that.
it is. There's no new science. It's reframed science. So when they talk about like, oh, the science is settled, technically they're correct, but the new presentation of it is not based in any kind of reality. And to me, that has nothing to do with trans rights. It certainly has nothing to do with gay rights. That is an effort of just destruction of classical categories, destruction of norm. That's more of queer theory, which again is very hostile to LGB and actual T. So we have a problem.
Yep. And when we say T, we mean transsexual people. Who often are part of the LGB. A lot of the other people are not even they aren't even part of the LGB because they are just straight people, like a lot of them that are part of the Q plus and all of that.
What is the plus? Like, what the fuck is the plus?
We can look it up. I don't want to get it wrong.
Look up the plus, because I mean, to me, I'm just like, is that just everybody? Is that just everybody else? Like, I don't know what that means. Like, TQ. So we went over what that is. Plus, I don't understand plus. And I've never heard anyone be like, oh, I'm plus.
I don't know. Okay, so I have something here from Very Well Mind. It's just the first thing that came up in a search on Brave. So let's see what it says. I don't know what their official definition is. And it feels like there's a lot of things that change between like interpretation, like because like I don't like the Q has been called queer, but it's also been called questioning, which I don't know why that would need to be on with all of this.
No.
So what does LGBTQIA plus mean? Understand why the acronym is used and what it stands for. And this is from June 2nd of 2023. So this is pretty recent.
Okay. Look, they go down each one. Okay. Queer,
so lesbian, gay, bisexual, and then they say transgender, but that's not what we're saying. We're not calling it transgender because transgender is an umbrella term that covers the rest of everything, but not intersex. Like intersex is not part of that actually.
They have intersex in there.
Yep.
And see, they're basically trying to say like, it like defies the binary. It doesn't. Okay, the plus to signify
gender identities. Gender identities and sexual orientation that are not specifically covered by the other 5 initials. For example, it's a two-spirit, a pan, an indigenous American identity.
What does that have to do with any kind of sexuality?
I don't know. I mean, an asexual is someone who has little or no sexual attraction. However, they may experience romantic attraction. So I know people who are asexual. It's I don't know a lot, but I know a couple. And And then, they describe intersex as individuals who are born with both variations of sexual characteristics that do not fit within binary definitions of male or female bodies. Well, it's a little bit more than just that. It's actually their biology. It's their chromosomes and everything. That's really weird how they phrase that. And then queer and questioning. Oh gosh, I see the word cis in here, of course. Queer may be used by people as a specific identity. It is often considered an umbrella term for anyone who is non-cisgender or heterosexual. But it is also a slur. It should not be placed on all members of the community and should only be used by cisgender and heterosexual individuals when referring to a person who explicitly identifies with it. Questioning refers to people.
This is just how controlling and like authoritative this is. You shouldn't use it. If you're this identity, you can say this. And God.
But where is the term transsexual in here? Have you seen that at all? I haven't seen transsexual. I don't see transsexual in this article at all. They are erasing transsexual people with this transgender stuff. Do you see this? That is who is not represented at all.
No, it's all transgender.
Yeah, they are erasing transsexual people because transsexual people are in the binary.
Yeah.
So
that's the problem.
They are trying to erase the binary, and that includes transsexual people. And this is why I am like adamant, because I have friends who are transsexual and I don't want them being erased, and they are the ones who are being erased, and it's not an inclusive movement. It's very exclusive. It's like a way to make people who are just heterosexual be special. It's like, I don't want to be like have some special classification because I'm an LGB. You know what I mean? It is what it is, and that's it. And just
also like, I mean, you notice, right? Like the activist side of this is so disgustingly hostile to LGB and classical T, right? But like uses them as a shield to validate themselves.
They do.
I mean, we hear more about like, oh, like non-binary, the struggle of non-binary. There's no fucking struggle of the non-binary. Like, seriously, get a hobby. I saw one video today. I don't know if you saw this one. Really disturbing. About, I'd seen this girl before. She's big into like all of this rainbow mafia stuff. She got a double mastectomy. Okay, she's really cute girl. She got a double mastectomy, and she did this video being like, just telling kids how if they don't how to get approved for a double mastectomy even if you're not on hormones, because she's not on hormones and she doesn't want to take hormones.
I saw that because they're doing non-binary double mastectomies.
What fucking surgeon was like, yeah, let's do that. Let me just, no hormones, just like, because I'm just, and
you can always take the hormones later.
You can take them later. You have your whole life to take them. And yes, there are some surgeons who require you to be on hormones to do this procedure, but that's not very inclusive. And are you kidding me? this is now a lifestyle. It's not, and it's crazy how offended we see people get when you say it's a mental disorder. They flip out.
But
So-
yet they list their disorders. Some people list every single one of them, and that's their entire identity. And then others, if you even point out that something is a mental health disorder, and anyone who is actually transsexual will tell you, yes, I went through the counseling, I went to the doctor, I went, I got a diagnosis. This is a mental health disorder. This helps alleviate this mental health disorder for me, and this was a last resort. We don't recruit anybody for this. We don't want to promote this because we don't want people to feel the same way that we feel. And that is exactly what I hear over and over from actual transsexual people.
Yeah, but the younger kind of just like non-binary queer types, no, they do not want this to be a mental disorder. And it's so I mean, you'll see them compare it to like, oh, well, like gay used to be considered a mental disorder. These two things have nothing in common, like literally zero in common. These are completely different things. Of course, it's a mental disorder. If it's not a mental disorder, then what you are actually saying is that there then is this group of people as an identity who, if they cannot on demand alter their bodies, they kill themselves. That is what you are actually saying then. So it's not a mental disorder, but if they can't do these things, they will go to extreme measures of the most extreme measure of self-harm. That doesn't make any sense. It needs medical intervention. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't affirm, something really bad could happen, but it's not a mental disorder. Like, this believing that you are born in the wrong body, and I know some of them don't say that anymore, but insert whatever the appropriate thing is. That is not the healthy default. And if you genuinely have that pain and that thing, that you should be able to correct that, to live a beautiful, functional life. But to sell it as a lifestyle, it is such a gross, just stupidly irresponsible.
I have another one for us. Maybe you guys can help me understand this one. I felt more confused than less confused after this. I felt like this was just like a complete word salad, and maybe you guys can help.
Okay, today we're gonna have a quick chat about the phrase the girls, the gays, and the theys, and the phrase girls and femmes. People use these phrases to try to be inclusive, which is wonderful and awesome, and we should encourage. And it's a misguided attempt. I'm going to talk about girls and femmes first, because it's easy for me to talk about that from a personal perspective. So I identify as non-binary. I identify as a lesbian. A lesbian is my gender identity. When you say the girls and the femmes, I don't really automatically associate with that. Not a girl, and definitely not a femme. Don't call me a femme. Personally, the way I talk about this is like women and women-aligned people, meaning people who are usually dragged into the struggles of women. This means if you're a trans man, you have a vagina, you're going to be dragged into the struggles of women because anti-abortion laws, they're pointed at women and they affect you. I would love to hear other people's way that they say this, because girls and femmes really it's focusing on the feminine part of that. And if you're focusing on the femininity is what brings us together, I don't want to join in because that doesn't feel accurate to who I am. Now, the girls, the gays, and the theys, right? First of all, just like the theys, not all of us love being called theys, but also like the gays and the theys, the gay people and non-binary people, it makes sense to lump together, right? Because we're all a part of the LGBTQ community. When you suddenly lump girls in with that, Why are straight women suddenly more aligned with the LGBTQ community than straight men? They're not. They're not. But there's an assumption in this. There's an assumption that straight women carry that they're like closer to gay people because they think of gay people as gay men. They're closer to gay men than straight men are, but they're not. Also, when we say non-men, right? It's a great way to try to be inclusive. And we can acknowledge that when we say like non-men loving non-men, if that's your definition for lesbianism, you're going to include some people who identify as gay, not lesbian, and they're going to be confused. Some non-binary people who identify as homosexuals, the same, like I identify as a homosexual, I'm on the lesbian side of homosexual. There are people who are just like me, but they date men and non-binary people. They're on the gay side of that spectrum. Not all non-binary people are closer to womanhood than they are to manhood, but that's the way we've started talking about it, and that's kind of problematic. I don't have a bunch of solutions for this, but it's a problem, and we can acknowledge the problems in the ways that we talk about language. We don't have great language for the specificity of queer identities because a lot of queer identities are not specific. But when we're talking about this kind of cultural phenomenon, we really want to be specific. Now, I'm not saying never use these phrases. I'm saying be really conscious of who you're talking to when you're using that kind of language, because sometimes you skip over the people you mean to talk to.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say that was okay. I would really like the last 2 minutes and 55 seconds of my life back. That's the first thing. Okay, my God. So, one, lesbian is not a gender identity. I don't know where she got lesbians is sexual. It's not a gender identity. But I am a little confused. So she's a lesbian. She's non-binary, but she's not a woman. Do I have right?
Yeah, and lesbian is literally that's why they had to come up with that new definition of non-men loving non-men so that they could include non-binary people, which are you don't change your sex. Sorry, this doesn't happen. And this is the difference between what transsexuals acknowledge their biology and transgender people do not. And then they make up terms to fit these non-realistic non-truths.
Yeah. And the other thing that is so common in all of these kind of videos is they all talk as though they're like
a scholar in it.
Yeah, like a Harvard professor. Not that I necessarily think highly about someone because they went to Harvard. A lot of stupid people go to Harvard, but you know what I'm saying, like just that sort of
they have an authority in what they're saying.
When it's like you are just some bitch on TikTok parading your mental illnesses in a manner way more vulgar than you would ever see anything on OnlyFans. Okay, like it's literally like porn. It's just I have no idea what that was. I feel like that was just a lot of invented language so that she does not have to admit that she's a white cis lesbian, because that's just not stunning and brave enough. That's still sort of part of the problem. She would still have to check her privilege. That's literally what she is trying to avoid doing. It's just like, let me get my oppression merit badges, because that was a whole lot of nothing. And again, it's so like, yeah, it's all on you, but it also puts all of these labels on everyone else who didn't fucking ask for them.
Yeah, and people will say, well, why does this matter? Because when a small part of the population is affecting the large majority of the population in many ways, it is a problem. If we speak out against it, we get labeled as all kinds of things. Then it's a problem. When we're silenced, when we say this is
when you speak out against it, and you can lose your job, lose your children, lose your livelihood, get canceled. It's a problem. It is a problem.
I have people that have gone after my fundraiser online, that have, gone after my business, and, like they try to get us, canceled. And it's absolutely atrocious.
Yeah. So it's all what, it's such an infuriating thing. Oh, why do you care? Why do you care? It's like, why don't you care? Like, you are the problem. If you don't care about this at this point and see where this is going, this is going to be a hell realized way too late.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's sneaking right up on everybody, and it's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect everybody. Everybody's suddenly going to have a child that they know that is, that is trans, or something. It's going to hit home. It's going to hit home with everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, I have another video. This is, I think, the one that you were referring to a minute ago. Share this. No, don't play. How do I make it go bigger? Yeah, this is the one that you were talking about. All right, let me. So this is what you were talking about earlier, and I found the video.
Do I need to be on hormones to get top surgery? The short answer is no. There's a common misconception that all surgeons require hormones for you to get top surgery, but that's not true. Some surgeons do require you to be on hormones, but this actively excludes people who don't wish to be on hormones or don't have access to hormones. People ask me all the time whether or not I take hormones. I do not take hormones, and truthfully, I don't have any interest in taking testosterone because I simply don't want the changes that go along with taking T. That's why it was extremely important to me to find a surgeon who had worked on non-binary patients before. All I did was research surgeons in my area that took my insurance, and then I just called to make sure that they had worked on non-binary patients before and that I didn't have to be on hormones. Remember, gender is so individual. Any gender can look like anything. If you want top surgery, but you don't want the changes that go along with taking hormones, you don't need to take hormones. You could even get top surgery and then later decide that you want to be on hormones. Never feel pressure to take hormones if you're not sure, because you have your whole life to take them. And a lot of the changes that go along with hormones are permanent. And don't forget, you don't need to do anything to be trans. The only requirement for being trans is feeling trans. So if you feel trans, then you are. Honestly, it's so simple. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll be sure to answer.
Well, she said the quiet part out loud. No.
Yep.
No
Self ID. Self ID.
Self ID.
You do not. All you have to do is feel like
One
it.
of the best ways to protect your scars at the pool, at the beach, or at the waterfall is silicone scar tape. It comes in little packs like this.
Do we notice though? Like, look at this. This is just now she's gonna hawk product. She's probably getting paid for that. I guarantee you she probably has videos where she's like, be like, oh, look at this lotion for your scars, or look at this, like.
Yep. I've seen her putting on stuff onto her scars.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if she's paid or if she's just looking for it. But how interesting is it that if you have a mastectomy, you can just be out without your shirt on. But if you have boobs, then you have to cover them up. Like, how weird is that?
Mm-hmm.
This is still a female.
Yeah.
But suddenly, if you get them cut off, then you can go topless. Then you're privileged. It's really cut off your breasts and become privileged. Like what kind of message is this sending to females?
Oh, I mean, nothing good. This doesn't. None of this helps females. It doesn't help boys. It doesn't help women. Men. Like this is a fucking screaming disaster. And I do have a lot of empathy for the crushing weight that is eventually going to probably come down on this poor girl.
Well, yeah, just I mean anybody who's done it that doesn't actually have gender dysphoria and that it's not it's going to come. And then I've just asked people that have detransitioned that have just come out on Twitter and I'll say how are you feeling now? Like just how are you doing in this time? And people will pile on me for even asking them how they're feeling, for having empathy for them. You're not allowed to have empathy. You have to know you are supposed to just go along and attack these people that are coming out and saying, oh my gosh, I was wrapped up in something. And for whatever reason, whether they were fooled, whether they did it and they didn't really, know what they were getting into, whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. I still have compassion and empathy for people who are like, wow, I did all that to myself. And now I have consequences.
Yeah. And they get mad at them because, it's a very cult-like mentality. It's a cult-like movement. The origins of it, no. I mean, you look at like the original gay rights, original like classical transsexual. No, but this is something now completely different. I don't think it has anything in common with that.
It doesn't feel like it has anything in common with transsexuals, but they're being completely confused. People are thinking that they're one and the same. And then there's people that are just attaching themselves on to, to these identities so that they can get away with doing things that are, that are harmful to other people.
Oh, it's a shield. It's a complete shield for any kind of sociopathic behavior that you want. If you have if you have been able to smuggle yourself into some kind of trailblazing identity, it's really a get out of jail free card.
I mean, that's literally happening. That's literally happening where people, if they have a trans identity, they're getting less of sentences, or there have been males going into the female prisons, which is now being reversed. We're seeing the reversal of that. So that's beneficial. And we're seeing the reversal of male biologically male people in women's sports. We're seeing the reversal of that. Leah
Thomas, which is great. That's good. Like to see the medals get returned.
Yep, that's where I'm at with it as well. Absolutely.
But I just it's such utter madness. And it's interesting that the people who you would think would be the go-to to speak on these issues, so like people like Buck Angel, people like Blair White, or Marcus Dibbs, or whoever, but they're not. They are never invited on mainstream media, extremely rare. And instead we're propping up these people who announced a trans mask demi boy identity about 5 minutes ago after spending a couple hours on TikTok. They're being held as like, oh, that's listening to the trans community. No, it's not. But I can tell you like what I've had more than one person say to me on Twitter if I reference someone like Buck or Blair is that like, oh, well, they're not politically trans. Well, right there, you just gave it away. You just gave it away because it's not actually about being trans. This is a political movement.
Yep. I mean, it's to the point where also they just did it with the Muppets with Gonzo. Gonzo has come out as trans. Did you see
Wait,
that?
What?
Gonzo.
No. Wait, Gonzo, like the
I
Muppet.
probably can't play. Yeah, I can't play the actual. I can play the cartoon, but I can't play the volume on it because I'll get dinged for it. But I'll show
Okay.
you. Yeah, I have it where they find out that he went to the ball in a dress, and yeah, I'm dead serious.
Oh my god, play it. I don't even without sound. Just I want to see it.
Yep, Gonzo is a little. I don't even know. Yeah, well, I don't even. Gonzo's a freaking Muppet. So
You missed our royal ball. We met the most amazing princess. But they ran away, and all they left behind was this.
Everyone, there's something I need to tell you. The princess who came to your ball tonight was me. I'm Gonzarella.
But Gonzo, why didn't Vu tell us?
Because you all expected me to look a certain way. I don't with me, but I don't want to do things just because that's the way they've always been done either. I want to be me.
Oh. You know what? Like, here's the thing. It's not even. Oh my god.
like when did we skip over just like, you know, people like males wearing just clothing? I don't care if a male wants to wear a dress. Like I don't care if a male wants to wear makeup. Let them wear the makeup. Let them wear the dress, but they don't need to. We don't need to go so far.
And also, let's just be real for a second. Let's go back in the day with Bert and Ernie, okay, that were my jam when I was a little girl. I loved Bert and Ernie. Now, looking back, I think we all kind of knew that like Bert and Ernie were probably gay. Like, I think that there was like some evidence to be like, oh, were they a couple? But that's
just leave it as that. Leave it as that mystery and leave it as adult conversation.
It didn't beat you over the head. It didn't indoctrinate. It was just like you see it now. But like, if you want to just kind of show these a little bit unconventional, you know, quote unquote unconventional relationships, like, or like, go ahead. But it's the deliberate indoctrination aspect. It's the deliberate, like, this is good. Think like be this. Kids are very suggestible. Like you. Oh, did you?
And just because you want to wear a dress and you're a boy, that doesn't make you transgender. It doesn't mean that you have to change everything that you are.
No, it's such a regressive, like a deeply, deeply regressive movement in that respect, where it's like they love to talk about like let kids be gender non-conforming, but actually you want the exact opposite. The minute a little boy is like, oh, you know, sparkly like eyeshadow or a sparkly dress or sparkly shoes, I want to play with that. Or like if they have a sister that has Barbies and they're like, I want to play with that, you're like, oh, I think they're trans. No, they're just a little boy that's playing with that shit. Like, it is such a deeply conservative, regressive, like I said on Twitter last week something to the effect of, if gender ideology had come out of the right, the left would be categorically condemning it as the greatest homophobic and reactionary movement of all time. I stand by
yeah.
that.
I had Steve make a meme. I'm gonna pull that up and put that up on the screen because okay, you look at what is happening right now. We have Barbie and Oppenheimer at the same time. And what did they do with Barbie? They made it a trans person. And let's look at this. Let's look at this. This right here, the spectrum here. Okay, this is from Mermaids, the gender spectrum. And on one side, it's Barbie, and the other side is the G.I. Joe. And this is what Mermaids, who is famous for this, you know, this gender ideology. And then I had Steve put Barbie, because that's what they use, and a new Oppenheimer movie on the other side where the G.I. Joe is. Now, this white thing right here, this white block, this spectrum is one of their logos, Mermaids. Do you see the propaganda? Do you see what they're doing? They are really, it's really repressive. It's extremely repressive. I like to play with both. I was somewhere like in the middle, you know, but like, so throughout all of this that's happening, we have Mermaids. This is their like, you know, this is their little meme to kind of like represent everybody. Oh, you're somewhere on this spectrum, right? And they use Barbie and G.I. Joe as their spectrum. And then look at what we have going on right now. And they put the person, the star of the Barbie. They make Barbie a biological man dressed as a woman. I mean, I can't unsee it. I can't.
No, it's
and how many people are falling for this right now? How many people?
The other day, in Buck's live stream, we were talking about how you know, if a little boy is super into G.I. Joe, we're gonna worry about, like, you know, his toxic masculinity. But if a little girl who says I'm a boy then picks up a G.I. Joe and is super into it, we're like, oh, stunning and brave, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah, this is all a problem. The Barbie movie is a problem. We fought against Barbie movie. Do you remember? Like, it was like, yeah, like Barbie isn't a real woman. Barbie could never be a real woman. No woman has that shape. It's unrealistic. And there was like a huge pushback against Barbie. And now here we go. We have a Barbie movie, but it's also a trans person.
It's so crazy. It's it just, I don't. Oh, it's you know, slap a progress label on anything, and apparently the context of what the thing is doesn't matter. It's just like, oh, this is deemed progressive, and it is just very disappointing to me and very frightening to me that any sphere of what is the accepted left, and I include some of the dissonant left in that, is on board with this. And I think the reason is because very much so in America. I think it's true to an extent in Europe, but I think definitely in America, people take their politics as a package, and this is packaged in, and so they just say, okay, this is part of the left, this is part of the thing. No, this is insane. This is utterly fucking insane. But it's part of the package. And if you don't swallow this part of it, we see it with just, you know, mouthy little nobodies, which I love to call myself, you know, on Twitter, like all of us. You're labeled as, oh, you're doing right-wing talking points, you're a transphobe, you're a Nazi, you're cast out of the camp, right? You lose your card. So I think then it's going to be an utter there's no chance, to me, I hope I'm wrong, but it seems like there's no chance that you're going to see any leftist candidate or a political organization that's going to have the balls to come out against this, even if they actually think it's crazy. It's going to be political suicide, because that's how it's set up. It's a package. You know, and I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I would love to be wrong on this. But we see it happen to normal people, and I just, the marketing on this is very good. The framing on this has been very effective. The language is very effective. And I think the left has been very effective at, even when we debate this, we really still, to an extent, there are people who really push this. I think you and I are two of them, and there's definitely a lot of others, but generally speaking, the left, even in the debate, has set up the parameters in which that debate is taking place. Do you know what I mean? So like, they were arguing, you'll see arguments about trans kids, because the assumption is trans kids exist. They've already sold you, like, you can argue about trans kids, but to do that, you have to acknowledge trans kids exist. And if you don't acknowledge that trans kids exist, that's a genocidal act. So they've already given you, like, protect trans kids. If you're like, well, hang on, there is no such thing as a trans kid. There's kids with gender dysphoria.
It's very circular thinking. The whole definition of it is very circular. They've built in the criticism into the statement.
Yeah.
Like, the statement already lends itself to having a criticism that they can yield against you at any point in time and turn it around on you. That's why, you know, like when you're saying before, it's very linguistic. Absolutely. It's all about the language. And if they can twist and manipulate the language to fit their narrative, then they've won. And that's all they do. Yeah. And then there's like just all these different levels of the language and understanding. And we've shown that throughout the show with like the different videos. There's people that want pronouns. There's people that don't want pronouns. There's people that want unspeakable pronouns. How there's never going to be, even if you try to satisfy everything that they've said, they're eventually going to move that goalpost and move the entire thing, where you're like, wait a minute, I've been your ally and I've defended you all this time, and now you've completely changed all the rules of this game. I don't understand it anymore. And I think that that's what happened, and I feel like I got left, like I'm like left standing like where I had understanding about things, and they are just like playing a whole different, like, you know, it's like a whole different game to them now at this point. Like, I can't keep up on it. And I'm like, I can't understand this, because it's not part of my religion.
Right.
And I call it a religion and I call it a cult because it's not a mainstream belief, and everyone does not agree with that, and that doesn't necessarily make it a religion. But what makes it that is that they are pushing this very, like, you know what I mean, like it's like, it'd be like saying like I'm not Catholic, and then them having a label for you to criticize you as being the worst person in the world because you're not that thing. And I don't know. It's beyond me. Like, it really is
amazing. There is just no end to this conversation. Every day there's new podcasts, there's new thing, because this is becoming one of the defining sort of I say cultural battles, but it's not that term doesn't really carry like just how much of a magnitude I think this has, but just one of the probably the most defining cultural battle that we currently have. I mean, it would be one thing if it didn't have institutional backing. It would be a different thing. But
it would be totally different.
It does, and it has government power behind it. It has a lot of money behind it.
Yeah, everything that was like LGB, shifted money wise into this. Once we establish, like equal rights for gay people, gay marriage, and you could be on the health insurance, all of that. Once we establish that, it completely switched and turned into the transgender movement. It's
And
the
now
next oppressed
you've
class.
also then though now got big pharma in it too. That's the new one.
I mean, it's very reflective of like how Scientology works, except for the money doesn't go to there's no like defined formulated church. It's the money goes to big pharma, and that's where it goes. I mean, if you look up fundraisers for girls wanting to have their healthy breasts removed on, Give and Go or what's the other one? GoFundMe. Then you'll find just thousands and thousands of people trying to raise money to have healthy breasts removed.
Yeah. And the other problem is that this is a movement that if society does not comply, the ideology falls apart, which is sort of the blessing and the curse of this entire thing. Because on the one hand, it's like, okay, yeah, if everyone stood up and was just like, no, absolutely not. Like, go home, get a hobby, get therapy, do whatever. But people typically don't work like that. And people love an underdog cause, and they love to feel virtuous, and they love to think that like they're on the right side of history and they're being kind and they're doing these things. So you get the coercion and you get the forced compliance in language, which when people say, oh, it's just inclusive language, like, what do you care? Well, when you control language, you control thought. That's where it leads. They don't do it just for nothing. It's not like, oh, it's fine. No.
Yeah, like
somewhere.
It's like Orwell's, you know what I mean? It's like his wet dream. I mean, like, oh my gosh, this is what we, we're told we're coming if we didn't fight back. And I mean, and you can look at it as in like, they were just priming us to get used to it, or you can look at it as if it was a warning. But I don't think that the government would I think that they would, if they didn't want it there, then they would have already just erased it quietly.
Yeah,
they would have done it quietly if they didn't want it there. They want people to desist from it. Like, they don't want everybody to go along with it. There has to be a resistance to it.
Oh, there has to be a resistance to it, because that it hinges on the crusade, on the social justice aspect of it, on the victimization of it.
Yeah. Because if everyone just went along with it, then we would have people that couldn't reproduce, and we would be boys, and that would be it, and Steve would be a female, and and it would be it would be everything. So they have to have people that resist it, so that they have more pressure to try to get people to accept it.
Yeah, it's very sinister. It's just a very interesting time. I never thought this is a conversation that these are the kinds of conversations I would be having. I really or having, like, literally, like, watching interviews and podcasts about, like, what is a woman? Are you kidding me? Like, it's unbelievable, but that's where we are. That's where we are.
Yepek said that Lucky is like Patrick from SpongeBob, chained up having peanuts thrown at her by the cult. I guess so, huh?
No, but it's great that you do so many episodes like this, and you have the guests on that you do, because I think we have our power is so limited that whatever we do have, you've got to like milk every single drop of that until we see some kind of tide turn, which I do hope. I think you're going to start to see a lot of lawsuits in the medical space. I think that you know, and even just for like civil rights violations, people getting fired, or you know, like, because this is utterly insane.
Yeah, people want to, you know, if you want to have, you know, you're a young person and you want a good career would be something in regards to what's going to come with this. You know, there's going to be a lot of lawsuits. There's going to be, you know, there people are going to need to have the educational background and in what this is, and you know, defining what it is exactly, because there's going to be a lot of confused people in courts and things trying to understand what this is.
That's true. Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
and in some ways it would be good if it was like considered to be like a religion or a cult, because then we could say to keep it out of schools, but then at the same time they get protections and money. So, you know, it's a two-way street with that.
And you really, like, the schools, I mean, oh my God, you could have a whole episode where you just react to teacher TikToks.
I don't know what this is referring to.
Look, he's not getting a taste of what men have been experiencing for decades. I'm curious. I don't know how to comment, because I don't quite. Can you elaborate? Because I might well agree with you. I just don't quite know exactly what you mean. I wasn't sure how to I got pushed back.
Oh, I've been talking about this stuff for a while, but just not I didn't dive into it at this level. I didn't go down all the rabbit holes that I did. I mean, we covered the gingerbread people and stuff like that when I first started this show. I didn't have a show in 2019 or 2020.
Yeah,
I've been resisting a cult-like behavior and hive mindset from people my entire life. I failed. You remember, I failed first grade because I refused to do what the nuns told me to. I have been having shit thrown at me my entire life. Yeah, I failed first grade because I wouldn't color the way that the nuns wanted me to. And I was put into that Catholic school, which I was not a Catholic. I was baptized against my will and put into a Catholic school. And I think it was to kind of get me to fall in line. Because my stepdad was military, and I'm very thick-headed and stubborn, and if I'm not going to do something, I'm not going to do it. Like, you're not going to get me to do something I don't want to do. Like, it's not going to happen. Steve can fill you in on that if you have any questions. But yeah, like I've been getting peanuts thrown at me my whole life. Like, this is nothing new. Like, Yep X said, do you think the evil WEF is behind this cult movement? I think that they're part of it. There's a lot of backing on this. Like, I don't really know who their exact leader is, though. You know what I mean? Like, there's not like a defined leader. There's like certain social media people. You have like Dylan Mulvaney, and you know what I mean? You have people that kind of like following in those same footsteps in like on TikToks and stuff like that. There's certain people that like you can highlight within this that you can see. And who's paying them but corporations? And then they're also getting invited to places like the White House. So
yeah, I think that there's a lot of vested interest in backing this, but the reasons that they're backing it are not necessarily all the same. So like I think there's overlap, and I think they realize that there's ultimately I think it's about political utility and money, right? And of course you have true believers in there as well. I think a lot of this started in academia. Like this was always like, you always have queer theory stuff in academia, but that's sort of where it stayed. It was like on the fringes of academia. And then I think when it, during the lockdowns, during the pandemic, there was sort of this explosion on Tumblr that made this stuff very kind of edgy and mainstream and rebellious and interesting, and everything was even more virtual because you couldn't leave the house. So I think that like you went from academia bleeding into Tumblr, and then you see it's not like a social contagion as a new phenomenon, but a social contagion. This is, I think, the first time we've ever seen a social contagion on the backdrop of social media, which is a completely different thing because it can spread like wildfire very, very quickly. And so
but it also hits certain demographic.
Yeah.
It's more of the white, or Caucasian middle class families that this is affecting. It is affecting certain people.
That's absolutely true. There's a socioeconomic factor to this. Obviously there's exceptions, there's always exceptions, but generally speaking, it was like middle and upper middle class white girls, is really what you saw. And then I think that you then had corporations, you had the medical industry, you had all of these very parasitic entities that are like, this is politically useful. It's useful for big pharma. It's useful to breed loyalty to a particular political party. It's useful for the activist movement who create a lot of jobs for like NGOs, and we can keep this going. And now we've got a new marginalized group. And so I think there was like a perfect storm of like different things that fused together. And WEF, I'm sure they have their hand in this somewhere. Absolutely. You might even actually have some true believers in that group. It would not surprise me at all. So yeah, I think it's a very inclusive mix of people. Anytime men express an alternative viewpoint or wanted to discuss our issues, we were always shouted down with baseless accusations. I will actually agree with that to a large extent, and Lucky may feel differently on that. I'm not sure. Which is totally fine. For me, like, I'm very critical, as gender critical as I am. I'm pretty equally critical of feminism. I have a lot of critique about feminism, and I have a lot of issues with it. So I can certainly understand this point. I actually very much empathize with this point, and I can tell you that on my Twitter, I tend to get a lot of hate from the radical trans activists and radical feminists, because I think, given the fact that I critique both of those things, a lot of times I think people don't quite know what to do with me, because sometimes I think it can appear to some that if I'm going really hard in on like women need their sex only spaces, and we are not an opt-in category for like men's fetishes or what, and I believe all of that, it's like, oh, okay, she's a rad femme. And then I will tweet some very positive stuff about like men and traditional masculinity and how I you know, just very like pro men, appreciate men stuff, and I can get rad femmes losing their mind and saying horrific things to me. So I don't fit into either of those camps. So I can certainly I yes, I would agree with your point. I think it's valid.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I tend to find a balance between the two. I think that there are strengths and weaknesses that each sex has, and like they should be able to balance each other out, and that's the whole point, is having the balance. And you know, I'm not like one of those females that wants to like exterminate men, you know what I mean? Like I'm not in that that is not where I'm at.
I just didn't want to speak for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd like to stay balanced within everything. I think that, you know, there are women that like the really like super masculine, like, you know, controlling, you know, men. There are women that like that. And so, you know, like if people aren't hurting somebody, then, you know, to each their own, you know.
Yeah. And to me, like, you know, I think maybe for some, like, there's a misconception where it's like, oh, if I say like I'm not a feminist, or even if I'm anti-feminist or whatever, that like that means I don't believe in women's rights and I'm going to let men walk all over me. And I assure you that is certainly not the case. You know, to me, it just sort of means that I recognize that men are not this monolith of this like power and privilege, and that I'm, you know, their very biological reality in turn oppresses me. I don't see
Yeah, I
that,
don't feel
and
that.
I don't necessarily see anything particularly oppressive of like someone being a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home wife and their husband is out, and I don't see that as inherently oppressive if both people are like totally cool with that kind of dynamic. Like I don't automatically equate traditional with oppression, I think. And I think it has a lot of value. There is good and bad in everything. So it's more like that. But you were in the Twitter space last night, right? Transsexual Unity's Twitter space last night for a little bit.
I was at the beginning, and then I went back and listened to it. I still have to listen to like the last hour of it.
Yeah, like so there was definitely like after you left, there was some stuff that happened that I didn't really like with one particular person who I just felt like really, I mean, she was coming from the rad femme space, and I felt like she just really crossed the line with some of the people in there in terms of just her lack of any kind of empathy. To me, that's how I took it. I didn't like it. I found it to be an example of when I say like feminism can be quite abusive, that I'm like this is what I am talking about.
So are you talking about the point where there was a female that came in because they were looking, like, to give people that weren't listening to that particular Twitter spaces, there was a female that came in that was a radical feminist, and she refused to call two people who were transsexual by their preferred pronouns, even though they were respectful to them, but they used Bucks, who is a biological female, preferred he pronoun. So they were showing very clear favoritism towards the person that they foresaw as female and used their respectful pronoun for that person, but they refused to do it for the two that were male, and they called them, you know, misogynist.
Yeah, that was certainly one thing, and I just felt like some of the comments were very you know,
I didn't hear much after that, so I
okay.
probably can't, like,
No, that's cool. It went to a very, I didn't like where it went, but that would just be an example, and I'm like, yeah, see, this is what I don't align with. At the same time, if a trans activist was going to come in and just be like, no, like, Leah Thomas should be in the locker room with, their penis out, and I'm totally against that as well. So it was like, we need a
there's
little
there's a balance that we need to find. We need to find the balance between the two. We need to find out how do we get closer to that. And I guess the way that we can get closer to that is by having the conversations and finding out where that line of offense is. Where are we in agreement with others and where are we not in agreement with others? And I think that helps us to understand where we kind of align and where that hard line in the sand is for us. Like, where does our hard line end and where does their hard line end, and see how close we can get them together with compromise. Because I think that that's the only way that we're going to get through any of this stuff. But when everything is shut down on us right away, then, and we can't have conversation because people come out with transphobe, bigot, you're a Nazi, oh my gosh, it's just nonstop. It's like they're really not creative with the name calling. It's the same things over and over again, and you don't get anywhere with certain people.
Yeah, it feels like a playbook.
Yeah. It's like they have they got the email that outlines, this is the appropriate talking points, and that's it.
Oh my goodness. Well, is there any more videos? Have we come to the end?
I think that's all the TikTok ones that I had. There was some quick ones that I wanted to show. Something that happened in New York City today.
Oh, okay.
So this
Wait,
is like
I've heard this, but I don't know what this is. I saw someone say something like there was some kind of riot and it's over like a giveaway or something. I have no idea what happened.
That's what I'm going to show you. Yep, there was a social media influencer that this happened with. So I have a news clip, and then I have a couple of things of the actual people. Oh, excuse me. Let me pause this. Make it bigger. So Sky News covered it, and there's a little news clip here on it, and then I have a couple other little clips, but I just wanted to show people like what can happen. Like, the one thing can get people really riled up.
Kai Cenat is in custody after the console giveaway caused chaos at the New York City park. These are live pictures now at the event, that console giveaway, which does seem to have got out of hand. Police have stepped in earlier. They were warning people not to travel to the area as they try to contain the over-exuberant crowds who were there for the giveaway, publicized by the influencer Kai Cenat. He is now in custody after the chaos that has been caused at New York City Park. We'll keep you updated on that situation this evening.
Wow. That was, did they say a console giveaway?
Yeah, he's a Twitch streamer. So I guess he was giving away, I think it was a PS5 that he was giving away. And so chaos, like just utter chaos happened after.
I kind of feel like people are just so, because of our so many people's like material security being so vulnerable. I think everyone is just so tightly wound. I think we are bombarded with like 24-hour news cycle. I think we're just kind of up here all the time, that any sort of stimulation, positive, negative, I think can go really quickly into utter chaos, because I just think everyone on a mass level, their fuse is just it's just very, very short. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
Here's
that's
another
build up of that.
Here's another video I'm going to play real quick, and this is in New York as well. This is Union Square.
What are they chanting? Do you know what they're chanting?
No. I do not know what they're chanting. Maybe this other one we'll be able to figure out. There's one more we can play real quick before we head out. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I just know there's a lot of people really freaking out. I mean, and it's all over. Whoops. I need to wait to make it bigger. And then so this is one where I think it's themselves, like the influencer in the vehicle. I'm not sure. But it looks like it from the way that I saw other camera angles of this same clip. All right, I'm going to add that.
As you can see, there's a large crowd here. We're hearing estimates of thousands and thousands of people who showed up, and clearly NYPD is back in the situation.
Stefan, I don't want to interrupt you for one quick second right now, because you're looking at live pictures of a car that was literally covered with people, and we do believe that that was the vehicle that had Kai Cenat in it, which you can see now looked as though could have been leaving the area. And that is why you're seeing that crowd there chase after.
That's it.
That's the vehicle right there that they believe Kai Cenat is in right now. As Stefan was saying, he was there. He was in the crowd for a little bit of time, but clearly this was an out of control crowd, and no freebies given away, no giveaway whatsoever getting in the car. But clearly you're looking at a very dangerous situation with this car now driving pretty fast with those people clinging on to the side and top of it.
As you can see, there's
that is insane.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's happening. But yeah, there's just.
So wait, people were supposed to get some free thing. Was that
he's a Twitch streamer, and he was doing a giveaway or of some sort, and people just got out of hand. I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll be getting more information about it as
it just looks like aimless rage, honestly.
Yeah, I think that people are just we're going through a whole lot. People are financially struggling, people are emotionally struggling. I mean, it's very reflective right now what's like what's happening in our country and beyond. Like people are just struggling. We can't really talk about the last 3 years of all the censorship that's happened while we're on certain platforms, but what is this? No,
says
no
there-
fundamental differences between men and women. Such differences are mere
well,
social.
that's in my opinion, that's idiotic. So
That's not true. That's not.
not only is that not true, but I also have to say, why would we even want to believe that's true?
Like as a species, we are the farthest apart from each other. Like, do we realize that? Like we are very, very different. Between like our chromosomes, there's our lung capacity, our heart size, our bones, our structure of our bones, the density of our bones, the sizes of our brains.
I think Mossy wants to say hi.
Oh, hi, baby. Oh, so cute. Like, hey, mom. Hi. I want to be on TV.
So I will just, I have to move and make room for, the
yes,
the emperor here. But yet, no, I mean, right. There's all the physical differences. There is biological differences. There's just the inherent, like the differences in our nature to some extent, and I don't get why that's bad, because
it's not.
If you're to say like, oh, there's no if there are no differences between men and women, well then guess what? We don't need women's rights. We don't need women's only, and you know what I mean? Like then it's like we're all just these sort of genderless worker drones. Why would you even want to think that that's true? I mean, it's not true, thankfully, but what kind of liberation would that even be?
I don't know. I like that we're different. I like that. I don't want us to all be exactly the same. Like that's a strength. It's not a weakness. That, you know what I mean? Like we can do certain things that they can't, and they can do certain things that we can't, and they have strengths and we have strength, and not everybody, you know what I mean? There's women that are stronger than men, but there's men that are stronger than women too. Like there
would just be so much like as far as just sort of a policing in society that would go away, right? Like now it's like we know it is totally socially unacceptable for a man to hit a woman. You do not hit a woman. Well, if there's no difference, or if men can just define into the category of woman, then what happens to that kind of just social expectation? What happens to that? It doesn't exist. There's some very damning things that come from that line of thinking. Yeah, right. And I've seen that all victims are women, all perpetrators are men. Again, that's something that makes my blood boil. I think that is absurd. But yes, you certainly do find that kind of stuff. The Duluth model started as a model for TV but has expanded. Okay. No, you bring up some really good things, and I don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely no. Not all victims are women. No, absolutely not. That's just false.
It's just categorically false.
Yeah, there is, if you look at statistics and stuff like that, like there is more males that do certain things, and there's females that do other certain things. You know what I mean? Like so it's not I don't think that you can categorically say that, just all, the victims are all women, all the perpetrators are men. I don't agree with that at all. I've seen it
Right.
not be true.
There are absolutely horrible men. There are absolutely horrible women. Like that, I that's just how it is. I do not buy into this like women are angels and men are animals and like
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that at all.
But yeah, we and finally any patriarchy would be polygamous. Sheila would qualify, but we do not live in such. Monogamy is a compromise that works for most. Yeah, I mean, look, I know that there is people that do more unconventional type of relationships. Some people are poly or they have open or whatever, and I think like
I've tried out a bunch of different. I've tried out a bunch of those different relationships. I've had open relationships. I've had poly relationships. I've had multiple. You know what I mean? Like I've.
How did you find it that it worked? Did you find it?
I think it's all situational, depending on the situation and the partner that you have at the time and what works for them and others. I think it's all just a matter of what works and what doesn't work. I don't subscribe to like being for or against any type of any of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never been in a situation like that, but I used to, and I've just evolved to have a different point of view for myself. But like I used to be very philosophically like open to that. I was like, yeah, like I think that's totally fine. I actually even think that's kind of cool. Like I like it. And then I just through life I'm like, actually I think I'm actually far more traditional, but I don't judge anyone who it's working for, who is doing it a different way. I just personally I'm like, no, I don't like that for, me.
Yeah, I think it's just it's for me, it's always just been situational. What I feel, like what I feel good about at the time. There's a really good book if you ever want to look into to understand the different types of relationships. There's a book called The Ethical Slut.
Ethical Slut. Yeah,
Yep.
I am familiar with it. I've just never read it, but I've actually there's been many occasions where I'm like, oh, I should read that, even though it's not going to change my mind, but I would like to understand. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just want.
Yeah, it's a really good book. I never sat down and like read it like front to back, but like I would, because it's broken up in different chapters and stuff. I've read like probably the majority of the book, but just not sitting front to back. Like
Mhm.
I've looked through it and read certain aspects of it, and yeah, I still have a copy of it, and I think it's such an interesting book. It really goes into the ins and outs of relationships, and even if you do have just a relationship where it's just two people, also it tackles things like jealousy and just other things that you could use the understanding of to
Mhm.
apply to just having just a two-person relationship.
Yeah, I'd be very open to reading it. Wow. Okay. Oh, we covered so much. Oh my, this was amazing.
This was good. I feel like we needed to have like just like a
Yeah, I agree with you.
to talk about it.
Reality takes hell of a rest to the. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think that ideology is a lot of these other sort of theories on steroids and just completely perverse. Like I think that it's pretty catastrophic.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I Gray Walker, I agree. Yeah, this was great, and I'm just so happy that like you're lovely audience like welcomed me back. This was amazing. Thank you so much for
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. I was just like, yeah, you want to come on and react to some TikTok?
Oh, I will do this. I will do this anytime. This was so fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Well, thank
is
you guys
still
for
there?
watching.
Can I say goodbye to Steve? Is he still there?
Oh, I think he went in the other room.
Okay, we'll tell Steve I said goodnight.
All right, I will. Well, wherever you're watching, please hit that like button and hit that follow, subscribe, whatever it is. We appreciate you guys. Have a good night. We'll
Love
be
you
back.
all.
We'll
Thank
be back
you.
tomorrow, I'm sure.
Bye.